You think every
Dan Shostak here. And Craig Taylor, our council liaison for the day, is here also. Are there any items not on the agenda anyone would like to? Anyone here or on Zoom would like to? Yeah, you need to speak through someone's. No, the microphones are not working. Maybe Pat's over there.
I've seen it come from this earthquake and landslide risk. A little background on me. Member of I also partnership form member or well
Thank you, Kit. Yeah. After the meeting, why don't we see if we can help Kit find a speaker? If everyone can stay around for just a minute after the meeting.
I'd like to address.
No.
With technology. No, I don't feel comfortable with the direct request that you want. I would like very much to talk to you. I'm going to hand you my telephone number, contact, and if we can talk later.
Are there any other comments before we go to the old business? No, okay. We're at old business, progress reports for subcommittees. So who has something to report? Evacuation, Bob? Here.
Feedback, but I guess it's working. I have very little to report as far as progress on that. There's another geology project dealing with the town of Woodside that I've been involved in. And this isn't the right forum to go into that project, but that's what I've been working on.
I would like to bring attention of this committee is that I am now also an appointed member of the town of Woodside Planning Committee. I volunteered for that committee, believing that some coordination between us and them would be useful. On attending my first meeting last week, I learned there is already a member of the Woodside EPC designated as the Portola Valley liaison, but I suspect to one of the other town committees, Portola Valley, not to our committee. So she wasn't there at the EPC meeting. There are any of you have views on ways we should be better liaising with the town of Woodside, then now have this channel available.
Okay.
That is,
yeah.
And I would recommend that you should reach out about the EPC and talk to them to tell them, what you're doing. And that's Chris Heber is the chair. Heber, I think.
he's the town council member.
No. He's the chair of the.
So is this, Chris, is he, I was confused. Is he of our town or Woodside?
No, our
Great.
Oh,
I know, but Chris Herbert,
no, it's also Craig.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's the chair of our EPC. Yeah.
Good. And Steve, anything?
Well, my charged with, both of us spent some time in Japan last year. We were kind of reporting out on, but and it's a good example of how to deal with, public safety issues, natural hazards. And, you know, the most tangible progress is that Pat's lined up Ross Stein to this talk that was at 11. I've been reading an interesting book called Alone in Japan. It talks about kind of ongoing challenges Japan is having now to maintain the level of infrastructure that they built in the 20th. Ongoing demographic and economic trends there. But we're still, I think, on track to report out mid-year.
Yeah. Japan will live a long time. So
Sweet. Speak into your, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
So I met with Darcy Smith on March. Talked about communication. I can just run through some of my notes. I sent it to Simon and to Gary Ernst because we're the social media person. Talked about a range of topics, introductions, conservation, wildlife, and describe the overlap and responsibilities between cities and power. Encourage us to look at those committees, how they he mentioned that the emergency preparedness committee has a radio channel set up to run pre-recorded scripts when a relevant emergency occurs. I noticed on the website there's a separate link for wildfire tips. He suggested contacting the how they address preparedness, even contact and then she emphasized that different people consume information in different formats. So setting up talks by relevant experts. Said the 5 districts know which homes have residents are kind of on their own. Let's bring simple instructions on card or even to the treatment of the stock. Down trees that don't impact the health. For the town to expect a pattern of morning. Mentioned that some residents have installed solar batteries. Starlink for quite impressive. And so since then, she emailed NJP, the wildfire trust committee, who's on and wildfire. Ever focus committee that lays on the conservation. They have her.
Can I interject, ma'am? What you said about the black storm drain?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was when I was in Japan last summer, there were 5 typhoons. One that had 16. The one thing that struck me is there were people out during these typhoons. It was kind of like neighborhood committees who were out clearing storm drains in their little yellow jackets, and people they were taking it on themselves to, or were prepared to go out and do this. So all over the place.
Yeah, I would, if I may continue, the Portola Valley has the Public Works Committee guys who come and cut up trees that have fallen across roads so that the streets are clear by morning, which is pretty amazing. I wonder if we could do something like that for storm drains. It would be interesting, and I would like to see immediate response after earthquakes, just in case wires are down and the roads are impassable, to find spots that would hinder an evacuation. Yeah. Microphone, please.
Yeah.
Ken. Sorry, I'm sorry. So
Yeah, you guys.
we can repeat, yeah.
On your laptop.
As an adopted drain program, where you get to name your drain. And then once a year they hand out and be informed about how to clear their drains.
Nice.
I think I would add is WPA and WPP do many of these things. So if you're interested in following up, I would meet with.
So who is in charge? Is Selena? Or
You could go through Selena. Mark Dolan is the president of EPIC, which is the 501c3 that oversees.
who is it? What's it?
Dolan.
Donald?
Dolan.
Okay, thank you.
That's in case you don't know, CERT stands for Citizens for Emergency Response.
Okay. So do you think that in case of an earthquake, a large earthquake, they would have people out immediately checking the availability of the roads for evacuation?
Yes, and there's a digital network that's set up that we running for CERT. There's a lot of infrastructure for.
Okay. But not for storm drains here.
They could go out to storm drains as well. I mean, there's some issues. The fire department has some issues with people going out during a storm and clearing storm drains, but we can probably work through that.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Pat, anything else? Okay, thank you. Safety out. Go ahead, yeah.
Just released its own wallet card to carry, mostly aimed at fire safety. And as I look at it, I realize it's mostly links to mobile apps, alerts that may not, of course, be available at the common earthquake.
It's a good point. So is there an alternate communication system that does not depend on internet?
Yeah, there's a complete digital.
but not accessible by the average citizen. Except by prior arrangement.
Right.
There's also repeaters that you can buy radios as a citizen, and you can get on that network as well. And CERT will monitor both channels.
And the town also has an AM frequency, which it uses
To the radio. And that's a one-way.
one way.
That
Right.
will have the AM radio, and so there are both pre-recorded messages and they can be, custom recorded.
Meg, just for my understanding of what you just said. Its own network, but if I understand you correctly, if somebody goes out and buys a family band radio, then CERT monitors those if it's on the right channel.
I'm not sure. So there's what we call WPV1, PV1 and WPV1. I'm not sure what, they may be FRS. We can check.
Okay,
But you can definitely buy one of the radios that can connect you. And it's not the digital side of it. It would basically be the analog side of it.
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not sure it's FRS.
okay.
muted.
Um,
If you can't hear anything,
okay, there we are.
Speaker.
There, thank you. Okay,
Gary is now smiling. Gary can hear something.
What?
Gary,
I'm with you in spirit anyway, if not in body. Hi.
hi. Thank you for joining us. This is good.
Thank you
Okay.
for allowing me to do this. I'm sorry, but I'm a little under the weather. Anyway, here we go.
Well, here you are. Okay.
I am.
Okay, so you probably don't have a copy of the minutes, but we're just
Yes.
looking at minutes right now.
Yes, I do.
You do. Okay, do
Yeah.
you have any, you're
No,
officially,
I looked at them yesterday and found nothing to complain about. So
Oh.
no, sounds fine to me.
okay, well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to look at them. Does anyone, I didn't hear the motion. And Bob seconds, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Good job, Pat, as always.
As always.
As always. Okay, so next item is if we have a July meeting, if we can get a quorum, better yet, everybody. I have a speaker who is willing to speak to us in July. It's Kim Blizniak. Simon, do you know Kim? Yes, she is. Did you know her at Stanford? Okay. Okay. And Kim has been doing or has done some dating beryllium, actually beryllium 10. So it's radionuclide dating at Sanborn County Park down in Saratoga or near Saratoga. She has found that the slip rate on the San Andreas at that point is larger than it's been thought. We had a slip rate of 17, maybe 14 to 17 millimeters a year from trenching at Filoli.
Oh.
And that was from the, I think, late 1990s. And so everyone thought, well, and there's a slip rate of, I think, 24 up at Point Reyes. So no one knew why there was less slip here, but they said, okay, what's less here? Now Kim is finding higher slip, about 24 again millimeters a year, down at Sanborn Park. So then the question is, what's going on? But I would like her to tell us about her investigation. So anyway, she is. So anyways, if the slip rate really is 24 through here, the geologic hazard, the rupture hazard is, I say near Saratoga on hills. Yeah. So the geologic hazard is higher here than we thought it was because the next next large earthquake is probably sooner than we thought. The higher slip rate. Okay. So Kim said yes to July for a meeting. And the question is, and that's the next item, who is going to be available when during the summer? Because I know a lot of people travel. July, I have to look at the calendar.
13th.
13th? Thank you, Jerry. So July 13th. Pat? Pardon? Okay, Steve, you too, huh? Simon? Is that your first day? Okay. Okay. Can you slip out for an hour to zoom in? Okay. Bob, going to be here. I'm planning to be here. Gary, how about you?
Yes, so this is way far in the future for me now, but anytime it looks good. But the
Okay.
13th, yeah, I've already written it down in my data book.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So I'll try to make that more definite with Kim. And let's see. I said quorum check for the remainder of 2026. So Pat and Steve are both going to be away for May and June. Pat, yes. Steve, I think too. Hyman. Wait, I'm sorry, go on. When? You're gone? Okay. So we've got 3 out in May. That leaves 2, and that's not a quorum. Okay, so we will skip the May meeting and then I'll check again and check in again for June. Okay. Yes. So Bob, no, I didn't. Yes. No, I didn't. May and June. So you and I can, maybe Gary, you and Gary, wait, no, that leaves 3. Yeah, but that's still,
Still not enough.
yeah, it's not enough. We need 4. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay, so May is canceled. So what time is it? Oh, we're early. So Pat, talk about Ross Stein for a second. He's supposed to be with us at 11. Okay. So, okay. So we could pause, take a break until he comes, or if you have, well, any other thoughts on things?
Well, if
Yeah,
you have a moment, the business
yeah,
of the
Gary.
July meeting, can you hear me? Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay. So for the July meeting, that slip rate of 22 millimeters per year, it's an average over the time interval in which the data were obtained. And there are different techniques used. If they all come within a reasonable range, I think that's a triumph of science. The fact is, the the slip is not probably uniform at all along the rate. It's jerky, and some places move faster than others for a short time, and then others do it.
yeah. So
It's like
in Portola,
the whole thing has to more or less in aggregate move relatively, but it's sort of like pushing or pulling a freight train, a very long one. There's rarefactions and compressions, and it continues on, but all the cars don't move at exactly the same speed. So it's understandable that there would be variation over the time interval you're judging the slip. the total amount of slip. So the fact that it's all in the same ballpark is very, I think, comforting.
So rounded to tens, it would all come out to about 20.
Well, something like that. I think the more data you have, the more clarity on the plus minus it will be. But
Yeah.
you know what it's doing, sort of, anyway.
Yeah, but if yeah, it's a very good point. And if it's, it's probably slipping, or it could be slipping faster down at Sanborn because it's closer to the bend, which
Yeah,
is causing problems. And you'd expect more seismicity in the area of, Loma Prieta.
yeah.
But for current slip, yeah. 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 Yeah, beryllium 10. Yeah, she's using, exactly, she's using rocks, carefully chosen rocks. No, not that, on your computer. Turn your off.
Right, but when you speak.
Yeah, turn your speaker off and your microphone on.
It does that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Simon, speak, say something.
I've nothing more to add.
There you are. Okay. No, okay. I think, did we not catch what Simon said? You think, Fred?
No, I think.
Okay. So, Simon, I'm sorry, if you could, with your microphone on, repeat what you said, that would be helpful, because I think it's important.
I believe Betsy Madden. No, sorry.
Okay, right. Okay. Sorry, okay. Simon.
I believe that Kim Blizniuk is using beryllium-10, a cosmogenic isotope, to date the surfaces of boulders that she believes were displaced and therefore fresh surfaces exposed during the most recent motion on the San Andreas Fault through Sanborn County Park. I erroneously mentioned Betsy Madden, who is also a professor at San Jose State, and she is also working on larger scale fault displacements, I think, including GPS observations, and has a new model, I believe, spanning the fault system in the South Bay.
Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Simon. Kim has also done similar dating on strands of the San Andreas Fault in Southern California, just north of Salton Sea, and has determined which strand is moving fastest, has the highest slip rate. So as Simon said, she's working on the whole fault.
Here we are. Here comes Don. Ross. Hi, Ross.
Yeah, so we can find out from Kim how much work is being done with GPS, or maybe Simon already knows. And that would be very interesting to see what the current slip rate is.
Yeah.
He has?
Ross is here.
I don't see him. Oh, there he is. There you are.
Well,
Okay.
here he comes again.
Okay.
Ross, you're smiling broadly with your microphone off. We're lip reading to the extent we can.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
But somebody wants to see people in the room.
Simon, who are the people behind you, these portraits?
Wait. What people are? Turn audio. Okay. It is. Maybe.
Microphones on.
Okay, right now it's good. Hi, Ross. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm going to do a brief introduction. So it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Ross Stein. One piece that people may not know is Ross and his wife Sharon lived in Portola Valley in 1986, 1987, and had hoped to end up here, but housing prices got too expensive. So he's also found a very nice place to stay. So Ross is a longtime friend and colleague with the earthquake group at the U.S. Geological Survey. He had broad research interests, but I'm most familiar with his work on defining regional stress patterns and how they change after an earthquake, some areas advancing towards a future earthquake, others being retarded. And also his work in Turkey on the Northern Anatolian Fault, which is kind of an analog to the San Andreas Fault. And then also more relevant to today's talk is he and Senji Todo worked on there's a fragment of lithosphere stuck under Tokyo, and they looked at its seismic potential. Let's see. But then that, so Ross left the survey, I guess, around 2014, and he founded Timblor. So timblor.net, I believe. Yes. Which is intended to explain earthquake hazard and risk in layman terms so that to raise public awareness. One of the cool things on that site is you can put in your address and it'll give you a snapshot of the hazard. So today he'll talk briefly about how Japan, with its frequent significant earthquakes, addresses seismic hazard and risk.
Thank you, Patty.
Yeah.
Pat, please could you is your microphone up to the maximum?
This?
Yes, your speaker. Because if we only have one speaker active, we need to make sure.
Okay.
Ross, try again now.
That.
I can hear others. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah. Yes, very clear.
Is that too loud? Is that okay?
Ross. No, is yours on?
Uh-oh.
So should I mute mine or is that killing? I'm so confused.
Ross, we're having difficulties with the AV system here in the Portola Valley Town Hall. And so the committee is listening to you through the speaker on Pat's computer only.
Did you ask?
But that's fine.
Yeah,
We can hear you.
So I'm sure he's.
Well, I'll wait, go ahead and tell me when you would like me to begin and I'll do so, but I can also wait until you've got that squared away.
Ross, it's been an hour or so and we haven't got it squared away, so I wouldn't hold your breath.
Hi, Steve.
Hey.
Well, do we need to wait until 11 because that was the time advertised to the public?
That's possible, because I expect more people on Zoom.
That's fine with me. I actually just joined for a mic check since it's always wise to begin there. And I'm happy to wait the 10 minutes until you give me a cue.
Can you ask him to, try sharing, just make sure he can share?
Nan's asking if you do a test run of sharing your screen.
Let's do that. Let's try that.
So can we take can we take an 8-minute recess and we'll try to reboot the system in the meantime?
Yeah, we're just testing, sure.
Well, no, we're gonna reboot the system here. This Zoom is gonna go down. So,
So Ross, that works just fine, but we're going to reboot the entire system. So
Okay.
please try and join again in 5 minutes time.
Okay, that sounds good.
Great, thanks, Ross.
Pat, you're going to formally adjourn
All right.
the meeting for 8 minutes.
no, you don't need to.
Bye.
I'm gonna
So Patty, I think the plan is I will rejoin in 10 minutes. Is that correct? At 11 o'clock. All right.
Kind of excited.
All right, so we can hear him, but I need to unmute for him to hear me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you guys.
I hate to be defeated by tech.
Okay, I'm back. Gary, you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful.
Hi, Ross.
Hi.
You guys, can we start?
OSA.
Let's go for it.
That we're now being funded through work, which is sanitary. Pollution prevention studies, to maintain our. But we do 2 or 3 parks a year, and it's usually watershed. But get fish, forest.
Yeah.
But it's just a lunchtime, hour and a half talk. Plus announcements, people make announcements about funding. Somebody saw a beaver in the creek or, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun.
Nice. Sounds interesting. Right? And if you don't mind, chasing that other email, maybe you can send me a link to that.
Yeah, I can invite you. We're kind of rebooting right now after a year off. And I think we're only committed to 2 talks this year, but we have one coming up on Coyote Valley.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Taylor's like on this town council.
He's not there.
Okay, meeting is called to order.
Ross, it looks like we got the big monitors working in the town council chamber.
Okay,
Okay,
the,
great.
for anyone online, I can't do this. Okay, the meeting is back in order. For anyone online, I'm glad to see so many people who were able to join us. Ross, we have quite a crowd for Portola Valley. We've been having IT problems because of the power outage over the weekend. Do we have a speaker on? Is it mine? Okay.
I was gonna say.
So
I think.
we're hoping to get the entire Zoom system up soon, but in the meantime, Ross is going to show his slides as a remote participant, and I think you'll be able to see the slides. MJ, you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm on my phone, but somebody is unmuted and there's a lot of crosstalk. I realize you guys probably can't hear it in the town.
Yeah,
I think we need to stop using our laptops now because I think the system's working.
is it working now? It is.
I can hear you fine,
Yeah.
Nan, but like I said, there was a lot of crosstalk coming across over the
Yeah.
internet.
Here also. Yeah,
Oh,
we
okay.
think the system may be working.
So if we all turn off our microphones and use the system.
Well, can we get to Zoom now? I mean, can we start it?
We're not there. She's trying.
We're trying.
We're almost there, I think.
Yeah, but
At
Ross is,
some point, I mean, you can just get started.
We need to
If you just
start.
put it on one
Yeah, I
computer-
don't want.
yeah, he's on a schedule. He needs
Yeah,
to
just
start.
put it on one, just put it on-
Patty, don't worry about me.
Volume up. Everybody else needs to turn their mics off so you don't end up looping sound back through, and just everybody will hear what you say.
Okay, all right.
And for the people in the audience, apologies. Just kind of.
Yeah, come on up.
Yeah, come closer and we'll all just sort of huddle around the computer and listen.
We live here, we know what to expect from you.
Yeah, exactly. You know what our IT system.
Okay. Rita, if you want to come up? No, I'll just,
She's got my computer.
oh, okay.
You can sit right here.
This is the,
Yeah. I've been sitting down for a long time.
Okay, how you got?
Good.
Okay, Clark, you have. But,
yeah. So
okay. So Pat, you might give another short introduction.
okay,
to us?
there we go. There we go.
I think owns the co-host, so he should be able to share his slides.
Yeah, he is. He tested it.
Yeah, I know, but I just fixed it again.
Okay,
Because we
good.
rebooted it.
Okay.
You should be good to go.
All right, Ross, take two.
Great.
It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Ross Stein, who lived in Portola Valley from 1986 through 1987. So he's quite familiar with our, as he puts it, fault sculpted setting. So Ross is a longtime friend and colleague with the earthquake program at the U.S. Geological Survey. Some of his research interests that are interest to us are looking at regional stress changes following significant earthquakes, which regions are brought closer to failure, which are retarded from failure, and then his work on the North Anatolia Fault, which is kind of a analog to the San Andreas, and then finally more relevant to today's focus on Japan. He and Shinji Todo worked on a fragment of lithosphere stuck under Tokyo, trying to understand its seismic hazard. And so today he's, well, one other thing, he's founded Timblor in 2014, and everyone should check out the website, timblor.net. It has a lot of information written for lay people on earthquakes of note. You can type in your street address and get a snapshot of hazard in your location. So today Ross will speak briefly about Japan with its frequent earthquakes and how they've worked to mitigate risk. All right.
Thank you, Patty. And although Patty asked me to talk about Japan, and I spend a lot of time there because seismologists are attracted to Japan like a moth to light, Simon brought up to me the importance of remembering the 1906 earthquake. And we are just on its 120th anniversary. So I'd like to begin there and then move from there, San Francisco to Portola Valley, and from there to Japan. So I will now share my screen. The most beautiful writing on this earthquake was by Jack London. Jack London lived in Oakland, and immediately after the earthquake, he was wired by Collier's magazine to write a story about it. He said, "It's too awful, he can't do it." They said, we'll pay you 5 cents a word, and he took off. And a week later, on May 5th, his article was published. And I'm just going to read that passage while looking at some of these photographs. San Francisco is gone. Nothing remains of it but memories and a fringe of dwelling houses on its outskirts. Its industrial section is wiped out. Its business section is wiped out. Its social and residential section is wiped out. The factories and warehouses, the great stores and newspaper buildings, the hotels and the palaces of the nabobs are all gone. Remains only the fringe of dwelling houses on the outskirts of what was once San Francisco. On Wednesday morning at 5:15 came the earthquake. A minute later, the flames were leaping upward. In a dozen different quarters south of Market Street, in the working class ghetto, and in the factories, the fire started. There was no opposing the flames. There was no organization, no communication. All the cunning adjustments of a 20th century city had been smashed by the earthquake. An enumeration of the buildings destroyed would be a directory of San Francisco. And enumerations of the buildings undestroyed would be a line and several addresses. An enumeration of the deeds of heroism would stock a library and bankrupt the Carnegie Medal Fund. An enumeration of the dead will never be made. All vestiges of them were destroyed by the flames. I went inside with the owner of a house on the steps of which I sat. He was cool and cheerful and hospitable. Yesterday morning, he said, I was worth $600,000. This morning, this house is all I have left. It will go in 15 minutes. He pointed to a large cabinet. That is my wife's collection of china. This rug upon which we stand is a present. It cost $1,500. Try that piano. Listen to its tone. There are few like it. The flames will be here in 15 minutes. There are no horses. And he was right. So this is what was left. And this is what we have to remember. And 4 or 5 generations later, this is extremely difficult to hold on to this memory and to recognize how enormous the consequences were for California, for San Francisco, and in many ways for the world. But we need to pause and we need to keep this memory alive. It's probably one of the most important ways we can talk to the public about earthquakes, because I believe that in the reptilian part of our brains, Californians have decided that earthquakes don't occur anymore. They've been replaced by flood and fire. And the theme I really want to emphasize in this talk is that our best way of helping people prepare for earthquakes is to make the argument that their preparations for flood and fire will help them in earthquakes. So we need to take advantage of the fact that people do have concerns about their safety, and earthquakes should be one of those, because the earthquake kit is basically the fire kit and everything else. Now let's take a look at least Tembler's view of seismic hazards in Portola Valley and the surrounding area. So here you can see that living in Portola Valley, we think the chances of experiencing very strong shaking in your lifetime are high. So this is the 1% per year chance. If you are in a 1% per year flood zone, you have to have flood insurance. There's no requirement for earthquake insurance. But another way of thinking about 1% per year is that if you live to about 85 years old, then there's more than a 50% chance you will experience this level of shaking, and it's very strong. We can also think in terms of, well, what's the size of an earthquake that you're likely to experience in your lifetime? And that's about a magnitude 6.8. That's just a hair larger than the Northridge earthquake in 1994, and a hair smaller than the Loma Prieta earthquake just to the southeast of here in 1989. And you can see just in the past month, little earthquakes popping off along, more or less along the San Andreas in this region, which is simply a reminder that yes, it's building stress and earthquakes are occurring. Now, it's good news that in fact, despite what I've just shown you, there are a lot of worse places to live in the Bay Area than this one. Anything that's red on this map is a bad idea. So in fact, it's the Bay muds that fringe the area that are the riskiest area, despite the fact that they're farther from the faults. And the reason is that these bay muds and sands and deltas amplify the shaking. Here's just a map of the shaking potential of these materials, and you can see that the bad guys, the red area, is really fringing the bay, and you're far from it. Now, what's that all about? If I start beating on a drum skin, you'd hear it. But if I pour sand on that drum and beat it again, that sand's going to be jumping up and down. And that's basically what happens in these zones. If you heard about the Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand in 2010, it's relatively small earthquakes. These were babies. These were magnitude 6.3s, and they completely destroyed the entire downtown area simply because of shaking of this kind that produced something called liquefaction, where fluids come through. All right, let's zoom in a little bit more on Portola Valley. So, as you're well aware, you're living in a fault zone. And here is a map from the Temblor app of the flood potential. We presented it in a way that we try to think it's more palatable to people, that what your chance of flooding in 10 years, and you can see areas that have a higher and lower rate. We can also think of liquefaction, this tendency of water to come up through the sediments. And what's tricky about liquefaction is what it causes buildings to do is sink or tilt, and they're simply not designed for it. So a building could be structurally sound, but if it sinks or tilts, it's a total loss. And so those are the areas where a Christchurch type phenomena are possible. And you can see that there's some significant areas of the broader area around Portola Valley and Ladera where those are a concern. And more or less the opposite picture is for landslides. Not surprisingly, the ridge going up to Windy Hill is a very landslide prone area. In fact, Windy Hill is there because it was probably produced, that area free of trees, in a big earthquake shaking in some prehistoric San Andreas event. And finally, fire. This is a very inadequate map because it excludes areas that are called state responsibility areas. They're much better maps than this one. This is the one that's publicly available. And we all know now, because our fire insurance is being canceled right and left, that this is a concern for the area. Okay, so what I wanted to do here is really put earthquake hazards in context, for the other things that people have to concern themselves with. And when we think about our preparation for this means an emergency kit, a communication plan, a egress or an escape route that everybody needs to know about. And those things are common to an event that caused by an earthquake or a wildfire or a flood. Now, Patty asked me, what is Japan doing that helps people take earthquakes seriously and inspire them to protect themselves? And for this, I consulted a close colleague who I work with, Shinji Toda, who's an expert in this field. And you can see from this picture that things are entirely different in Japan. In a nutshell, the Japanese government doesn't have to remind people earthquakes occur because they live with this. And this is part of the national trauma in this country. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake was felt throughout most of Japan, but its consequences were enormous. Its death toll was high, 20,000 people. And Japan has this strong cultural differences from our own. To pay for the rebuilding in that country, all government employees took a 7.5% pay cut for a year. And since all teachers, for example, are government employees, about a quarter of the entire population sacrificed their income to help pay for the rebuilding. And there was a doubled sales tax throughout the country for several years also. And this was considered to be a responsibility of the country as a whole, even though the earthquake occurred centered on more or less the city of Sendai, very, very far from Tokyo or other parts of the country. This is entirely different than what would be the case in the United States. If California has a big earthquake, nobody in Texas is going to pay for anything. So we're kind of on our own in a way that isn't true there. There is a collective sense of mutual support. A number of years ago, I was at a geophysics conference in the northern island of Hokkaido. And unannounced, the Japanese emperor and empress came and addressed the scientists. I mean, I could never imagine a US president addressing a geophysical conference, but there was this sense that it was his responsibility to acknowledge the risks that the country faced and to thank scientists for working to ameliorate it. So the irony is that the problem that we have in keeping people aware of earthquakes is that earthquakes come unannounced and are followed by aftershocks, which essentially extend the trauma. They get more spaced out in time, and so just when people say, okay, it's over, bang, another one occurs. You can imagine another world, a perfectly rational world, in which the earthquakes start to accelerate and become more frequent, leading up to the big event. In that world, we would all take care of ourselves. We would kind of anticipate and get ready and be traumatized enough to do something about it. But that's just not the world we inhabit. Foreshocks are rare, aftershocks are ubiquitous. So it's very, very hard to get people thinking in advance about something that hasn't occurred in the Bay Area in a very long time. A number of years ago, I was at a conference in Japan, an earthquake conference, and it was in a very beautiful conference room. It was a wooden cube surrounded by a glass cube. And during the conference, an earthquake occurred. And what happened is the building basically was compressing and extending, and the seams were opening up. And we were seeing flashes of light. It was late in the afternoon of sunlight coming into the building from its opening and closing seams, like a Morse code message. And all the Americans in this conference jumped underneath the desk to protect themselves. And all the Japanese scientists sat there just looking at their watches because they wanted to time the difference between the first arriving P waves and the next arising S waves, and that would tell them how far away the earthquake was. So we were surrounded by these samurai seismologists who weren't even going to worry about the falling debris because they wanted to know where the earthquake is. And it just was this reminder that we live in a different world. And I'm showing you this picture of Tohoku, but in countless areas over the last 5 or 10 years, large earthquakes have occurred. There is nothing we can do to prepare people that is as powerful as these events that the Japanese live with. And that's why my view is we need to basically hijack flood and fire as a way to help people prepare, with the idea that almost the exact same needs that follow an earthquake, being able to take care of yourself for several days or a week, getting out of the area, making sure you have a way to communicate with your loved ones, and knowing that what you need in that kit is something that you always have to have in your car and in your house are essential. Now, I want to close with one important thought. And it's kind of the other side of the coin, but it's an important one. And it's this. Nearly everything we love about the Bay Area has been brought to us by the faults. Napa Valley, Portola Valley, and Carmel Valley. Tamales Bay, San Francisco Bay, and Monterey Bay. Absent the San Andreas and Hayward faults, there would be no San Francisco Bay, the only deepwater port along the California coastline, and so the wellspring of the gold rush. The San Gregorio Fault makes Big Sur big. A bend in the San Andreas thrust up the Santa Cruz Mountains, the spine of the peninsula, and the Marin Headlands. These coastal ranges temper our climate, bathe us in fog, and crown us in redwoods. What I want you to see is that we drink from the fruit of the faults every day. And so we have to learn to live with their occasional spoils. As most famously, we experienced in 1906 and most recently in 1989. So we have to take the view that we are the beneficiaries in this beautiful town of Portola Valley of everything the faults have created. And that comes with a responsibility to live well in our setting. Thank you. I'm happy to take, of course, any questions.
Yeah.
So actually, it's not quite a question, it's a comment. This is Kit Gordon speaking. And my former neighbor and good friend, Art Lockenbrook, used to say the worst time for an earthquake is in the spring of a big rain year. And I would add to that after a fire. I'm wondering if, because landslides and earthquakes obviously geologically go together. And I'm wondering if there's any preparation for that. Do people think about that when, like, this rain year coming up? People say could be like the 82, 83 and the 97, 98 rain years, which were years that I had major landslides near my property. And I'm wondering if there's any extra preparation for earthquakes when we have situations like that where massive landslides could be made worse by earthquakes.
Well, I agree with Art. Another great USGS scientist that I had the privilege of knowing. I'm not sure what we can do. You know, earthquakes keep their own clock, and we never really know what season they will strike. And the best we can tell is they don't have any seasonality at all. And so, yes, there are times of year when the consequences would be greater. I suppose you could say that in the middle of an August drought would be another bad time because any PG&E gas device that catches fire could incinerate the whole area. So I think we just need to do our best to recognize that our personal responsibility is first to make sure our home is retrofit or as strong as it can be, and to recognize that our largest asset for many of us is our home, and if it can't be fully retrofit, that we should insure it, and that we should be ready for fire or flood or landslides. But going back to my closing theme, who hasn't walked up Windy Hill? We owe the beauty of Windy Hill probably to an earthquake landslide. So, again, we're living in this kind of yin-yang world where the faults giveth and the faults taketh away.
Pat, can we invite questions from the online audience?
Yes.
If anybody wants to raise their hand in the online audience, we can unmute them.
Yes, MG Lee has a hand raised.
Go ahead, MJ.
Hi, thanks for your talk, Ross, and thank you, Geologic Safety Committee. I'm on the wildfire committee, and I was hoping that, when I saw the title for this talk, that you would talk a little bit about how Japan gets. I know they live with earthquakes all the time, so you don't have to do a lot of convincing for them to, do mitigation or know how to prepare for tsunamis and stuff like that. But in the U.S., or specifically in California, only 10% of homeowners have earthquake insurance. And with wildfire, what I run into a lot is people tend to believe, they're what we call risk takers. They tend to believe it's it's not going to happen, wildfire or earthquake. So I'll just do nothing and I'll take the risk that it'll never happen. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on how Japan tackles that, or how you would tackle that in California.
Japan's earthquake insurance uptake is not a lot higher than California's, ironically. And also strangely, if everybody suddenly wanted, or let's say 30% of Californians wanted to get earthquake insurance, there probably wouldn't be enough reinsurance money to support it. Have you noticed that the California Earthquake Authority has stopped advertising and encouraging people to get earthquake insurance because they're frightened that if they have more than 1 million properties insured, they won't be able to reinsure it, which is a very weird thing. And if you move around in Japan, you can see, yes, there are a lot of modern buildings that are very well built, but there's a huge number of poor, old, rickety housing. And the traditional Japanese building is wood and the interior is mostly paper. So you can imagine that fire following is a major risk there. And of course, in 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake took about 90,000 lives, mostly due to fire triggered by earthquakes. So are the Japanese better prepared? The answer is certainly yes. And they have earthquake early warning. They basically invented earthquake early warning that we now have in the United States. Everybody has the app. But beyond that, I'm not sure that the government is really doing anything unique that we could duplicate. And they are also making a lot of mistakes. For example, the committee that Shinji runs now that analyzes any real-time event to try to make a judgment to the government calls itself the Earthquake Prediction Committee, which is ludicrous because no scientist thinks we can predict earthquakes. And yet they've held on to that word for all these years. The government is extremely anxious about an earthquake in the southern part of the country along what's called the Nankai Trough because they're terrified that both the tsunami would come very quickly without much lead time and that in the 1940s there were large earthquakes there and they think they could recur. But they probably put many too many eggs in their basket. They did not foresee the Tohoku earthquake at all. So they've made their enormous mistakes. They don't really have the 2020 vision we would like. Nevertheless, one of the most interesting things about that Tohoku earthquake is that it was foreseen, the possibility of it was foreseen by a great Japanese seismologist, Hiro Kanamori, who spent most of his career at Caltech. And he wrote an article saying we haven't recognized the possibility of a very great earthquake on the Japan Trench in this area. After the earthquake, he was interviewed by Science magazine, and he said, "Oh, nobody could have foreseen that earthquake." He pretended he had never written that because in Japan, the duty is to accept responsibility with your community and not to say, "I saw it coming." If you put the same situation in the United States, you'd have all these scientists coming out of the woodwork saying, "I predicted it." Nobody would ever deny their own foresight to stand in harmony with your colleagues. So there are certain things we could never duplicate in this country that are unique and special about Japan.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Lippman has raised his hand.
Hey,
Hi,
Ross.
Peter. Good to see you.
Great presentation. Thank you so much. Two comments. First, about Japan, where Bev and I lived for a year, just to illustrate the duality of Japanese response. We lived in a little tiny traditional Japanese house, wood frame with a heavy tile roof. And basically it was an inverted pendulum. And we heard earthquakes that we could not feel because the house would creak. Secondly, just a little bit of a plea for how this country is maybe a little bit better than you mentioned, although not nearly good enough. your comment about Texas not being willing to pay for a California earthquake. I mean, we do have a national program called FEMA that is managed incredibly badly, but really ideally does provide national support for local catastrophes. And we really, as citizens, need to work to make FEMA or a FEMA-like organization more effective than it has been in recent years. But anyway, hey, great to hear from you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I certainly second your view that we need FEMA
Yeah.
and we need that kind of
More.
backstop and support.
Anyone else?
Ross, I don't know whether you felt the earthquake in the Santa Cruz Mountains 10 days ago, the magnitude 4.6.
Yeah.
Yes.
On behalf of concerned citizens, should that change anybody's perspective about risk and hazards? How can we take the ways in which we experienced that tiny earthquake to inform our understanding of what lies ahead?
I agree with you that anytime somebody feels an earthquake, earthquakes become real again. And so we should report on those, talk about those, remind people that there's a widespread misconception that the occurrence of small earthquakes lessens the possibility of the big ones. But it turns out that this isn't true, and that in reality, the little earthquakes simply remind us that the faults are ratcheting up the stress, and that ultimately only the big guys do the job of relieving that stress. So that misconception is really important. It's a numbers game that if we think about that 4.6 and we compare it to a 6.6, there'll be 100. 4.6 is for every 6.6. But the energy release in a 6.6 is 1,000 times larger than the 4.6. And that just means in the weird world of magnitude math, the big guys do all the work. And so the message is the Santa Cruz Mountains are continuing to be shoved up. That is accompanied by earthquakes, and those kind of earthquakes can get much larger. And it's a reminder that earthquakes have not gone away. So, in a nutshell, it's little earthquakes like that just remind us, yes, they're out there.
Thank you, Ross. Nona has a question.
Yes,
have
can
one.
you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a question that's somewhat like MJ's, is about cross committee coordination. On the Conservation Committee, we're seeing a lot of requests to remove large trees that might pose a fire hazard for structures, either required by the insurance company or just out of concern by the homeowners themselves. I've also heard, though, that large trees are venerable, significant trees with massive roots can be beneficial in earthquakes in that they can stabilize the ground and the foundation of a house. Could you comment on that? Is there information one way or another on that? Thank you.
Nona, I've never heard that. And I kind of doubt that the trees could do this, except on a steep slope. On a steep slope that is, landslide prone, root systems can hold together, let's say the upper 10 or 15 feet of soil. So if you lived on a steep slope then under those circumstances, they could be valuable. And as we all know, the root systems for redwood trees are substantial. But apart from that, I think the issue is really one that has to do with fire and the ability of the species of the tree to survive fires. Because if they survive, it isn't clear to me that removing them is necessarily beneficial.
Thank you.
Ari, did you have a question?
Yeah, yes, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I have two. One, a business about the help we got after the Loma Prieta earthquake. I had just come to Stanford, and we lost our major building, Geology Corner. The initial response by the federal government, when George H.W. Bush was president, was to argue that this was all old earthquake damage from the 1906 earthquake. The building started before then. But when Bill Clinton came in, FEMA got a lot more generous. So I would urge, and the same situation seems to be lurking at FEMA today, and I would urge the federal government to keep politics out of FEMA because it is the real world, but it does, toy with people's lives and livelihood when a disaster happens. But to lighten things up, I will tell you a story that Don Anderson told me. Don Anderson, who was director of the Seismo Lab, he said students often asked him, "Well, when is it? Will there be a big one coming?" And yeah. Well, when will it come? And he said he always told them, "I don't know when it will come, but every day brings it one day closer." And they all said, "Really?"
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, we are in terms of the importance of FEMA and the importance of the USGS in understanding the faults and likelihoods of earthquakes in this area. We're living in a time of peril. The USGS has lost almost 20% of its workforce in the last year alone. For every 19 people who have left, only one has been hired. Science at NASA is under attack. Science at NOAA is under attack. Universities are under attack to the point where professors aren't even bringing in grad students in many cases because they have no idea of the funding certainties. So, we should be grateful that we've had the support of scientists, clearly on the council here in Portola Valley, but nationally, and try to protect and support science as best we can. Because the alternative of just pretending that earthquakes don't occur or that climate change isn't happening won't get us very far.
Yep.
Another question from someone in the room.
Yeah. To talk here?
Yeah, please identify yourself.
Christy, and I have a question regarding gas lines and how we can be better prepared regarding gas lines and the number of cars in parking lots that are bombs waiting to happen. We're 9 by 9 square miles, and I'm concerned about the gas bombs that would cause the fire from the earthquake. So can you comment what you've learned about that? Thank you.
Well, I really haven't learned much. I would say my experience has been that Pacific Gas and Electric, for all its shortfalls in terms of its ability to anticipate and withstand the problems with wildfires, they have been actually very, very good about anticipating the problems associated with earthquakes. And so I think the first place to go would be PG&E and ask them, okay, here are the facilities that we have here. What is their ability to withstand earthquakes and wildfires? And give them the opportunity of explaining their point of view.
Might I add, Ross, that
Please.
Everyone who has gas service or a propane tank should know where their own domestic shutoff is. Yep. So that following an earthquake, they can turn the gas off and reduce the chance of ignition.
there are automatic shut-off valves that respond to shaking. We have one on our house. I was just fortunate that it didn't go off last Sunday.
Yeah.
I think Christy has a follow-up.
So I think it was San Bruno that had the big gas fire.
Yeah.
What could we do? What should we expect from our government here in Portola Valley? And how do we write that up so it occurs when an earthquake occurs? Meaning the shutoff valve for this area occurs quickly. Thank you.
Again, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm not even knowledgeable in this field. In the past, PG&E has not wanted people to put in automatic shutoff valves.
Yeah.
I think their reasoning was that then when it shuts off, they have to send someone out to restart it, and it's becomes a problem in terms of the gas transmission infrastructure. But I could be out of date on that, and I would at least listen to their guidance. I sympathize with the city council in trying to figure out how to get ahead of these problems and how to guide people, because I think largely the issue is that in either a fire or an earthquake, people will be on their own for a significant amount of time.
Yep.
That you won't be able to help them. The FEMA won't be there fast enough, and there's very, very limited resources. And so what we have to think about is, hey, do I have the food, the water, maybe, a solar battery, so that I can stand on my own 2 feet and help my neighbors when something happens. One of the things you do see in Japan, and you see this effectively in other situations in the United States, neighbors helping neighbors is the number one thing, particularly in the first 4 or 5 hours. And so all that you can do to help neighbors come together and discuss their needs and discuss their capability. Hey, who has a chainsaw? Who has a water cistern, etc. If you know that and you know your neighbor's cell phones, I think you're way ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Geologic Safety Committee, we had a PG&E spokesman come and give a presentation a few months back. I think he's the replacement for Lloyd Clough, if I believe. He has a degree in related to geologic sciences.
Yeah, that was a really good presentation. And Christy, I think that presentation is probably available online, the recording. Is that right, Nan?
Should be. It should have been recorded.
Yeah. I'm forgetting a lot of the details, but he gave a really impressive presentation,
And they seem quite squared away.
yeah.
Well, that's great that you've invited, I guess he's the head of geosciences.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
council. That's a really important connection. The only place where I would differ with you is that Lloyd Clough is irreplaceable.
Yeah, big shoes to fill.
Oh, Jeff Bachhubel, and it was on 13th January 2025 so a year ago now, more than a year ago. Their director of geosciences is his position.
So thank you for your talk. I'm Bob Rucky. I have an observation that I would like you to just give a reaction to. I'm sorry that it's not going to be a formal question. I know that our building codes seem to be designed to prevent people from getting killed or badly damaged, and we're not supposed to build on a fault for obvious reasons. And we have codes to keep us building slightly away from faults, but we really don't have a good system for providing information to the public of where ground can be deformed by an earthquake. Now, that may not cause the building to be destroyed, but it could easily be situations where a building will no longer be level. Or even if I've been reading the report by Reed that was part of the Lawson report, volume 2. And he was describing what I'm going to describe as lateral warping, where the ground We're not talking about vertical offset, but the ground kind of warps near the zone where the strike slip occurs on a fault. And it seems like that kind of warping can torque a building. And so our buildings, we are allowed to build in places where after an earthquake, the buildings are going to be very badly damaged and maybe have to be rebuilt because of the way that we are constructed. But that information is, for the most part, very difficult for the general public to know in advance. So they don't have really any clue as to what kind of a financial problem they're getting into. Yes, buildings are going to get shaken, but I'm not talking about the problems caused by shaking. I'm talking about the building becoming like not level anymore, or the foundation is torqued. And I could go on, but I think I've said enough. Any kind of reaction that you have to these thoughts, I would appreciate.
I think you're allowed, Ross, to advertise Temblor at this point.
Well, Temblor's commercial business is to provide information for insurance companies so they understand the risk they're taking. Our public mission is the Temblor app and the Temblor articles, which are free, and you can go in there and zoom in on your house and see everything that we can offer you. I would say that in principle, the quote Alchrist Priola zones, I think they're called fault zones now or something a little simpler, are an attempt to capture the kind of deformation that the questioner was referring to and say that, okay, if you want to locate, I think, a commercial building there, then you need to have a geotechnical analysis done to understand the consequences. So, those California Geological Survey puts those zones in for major faults to try to help people understand that there is more to it than whether or not you actually straddle the main fault. And of course, faults are grungy. They're not clean. There's lots of splinters and splays and whatnot. And so what you say about secondary deformation is certainly true and certainly seen anytime we have a big earthquake and we can map the faulting.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we're good, huh? Ross, I think you've you've exhausted people's ability to ask you questions.
Well, let me close just by saying I respect what you're trying to do. I appreciate your efforts to keep people aware of this and to inspire them to make themselves safer. So Godspeed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
We're all in this together. All right. Thank you very much.
That was great. Yes. So we are approaching 12, and unless there was any other comment, any other meeting, I want to thank Ross, who's probably gone for excellent.
Or just use the iPad. I mean, the iPad's.
Why don't you
Just
walk over?
walk with the iPad and close the meeting.
Pat, is your microphone on?
You can try.
Yeah.
Just talked.
Okay, in case Ross is still with us, I wanted to thank him for an excellent talk and a wake up for us. And it's inspiring to hear that we're perhaps not so far behind, but there's a lot of work here to be done. So that's all I have. Does anyone else have something?
Well, it's obviously to thank Pat for organizing the talk.
Yeah, thank you.
And to thank
Yes, thank you.
20 participants for
Yes.
joining Zoom and doing their best to become better informed about our hazard and what we can do about it.
Agreed.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, if there's nothing else, are we all willing to adjourn? All